Okay, welcome to Amped, the demo here. We're going to go through it pretty quick. You've probably been promised, if you're just coming to the demo for the first time, you've been promised a few things. One is that we're going to hit some of the items on our what we call the double list, just meaning features within the system that will definitely increase production or increase good quality bindings that you do, policies bound. That's what this software is all about, is making it easier to close more deals. Period. I mean, that's what it's for. This thing should, when used, will make you money. So anyway, yeah, we'll hit some of the double list, those features that will make you money. We'll also hit some what I call production hacks. So what those are is just little things you can do within the system to save yourself a ton of time and make things a lot easier for yourself when you're out there selling insurance. And then the other thing is for anybody that's a sales manager watching this, a lot of sales managers in particularly small to mid-sized agencies have no clue what's going on with their sales team. They don't necessarily know about every single lead they're working on or where they're at or what they're doing. And if they do, they spend a lot of time and energy trying to figure that out. They might use spreadsheets or some kind of a bulky, non-industry specific CRM or a sales tracker, or they might try to use their CRM, which is really clunky. We'll get into that. This is actually designed to work alongside whatever servicing CRM that you're using that you use to service policies. So anyway, a lot of promises there. You're going to find out how to increase production, find some production hacks, and learn how to make sales management a lot easier. So first thing we'll do is you need to start a 14-day free trial. You'll fill this thing out. You don't need to put a credit card in. You'll get that going. And then once you've signed up the first person, usually the owner of the agency, they're able to log in. And they're going to see something like this without the deals. Of course, this is just a sandbox I use for demonstration purposes. But you'll log in. You'll see a menu bar across the top and then what we call a sidebar. We'll get into that in a minute. The first thing you want to do is go into settings. Go over here to the far right where there's a little arrow here. Go into account and quickly just set up. You could do this. You don't have to have all of this to right now, but you'll send. I would advise the first thing you do when you sign up is just invite your users. If you're not confident you're going to use the software, you could pass on that. Maybe just sign a couple up so you can take a look at it. But once you see this, I'm confident you're going to want to use it. But you set up your owners. There's different options here. They can always be adjusted later. Kind of one thing I'll point out is it's kind of handy if you mark whether they're a sales producer or not, just because that will affect some of the reports later. And then another thing to notice here is goals. Very powerful. You could set goals up right away. Some very, very powerful behavior modification stuff in this software that's centered around setting goals. So set the goals, and then we'll get into what that does for you. But it definitely changes behavior of your salespeople and helps them kind of know where they're at. So you can set all you do is you hit add goal here. You pick what month and what day the goal is and type that in. And right now it doesn't carry forward automatically to the next month. You've got to set one up for each month. What's kind of nice though is you can have different goal amounts for each month. And right now it's premium based. Someday we hope to add if you just track policies bound. Something to do that too. But if you do track policies bound rather than premium, just kind of figure out what your estimated average premium is, and you could just sort of calculate it that way. The reports will still show the numbers of policies bound, so you'll still have that information, but purely from the goal module here, the production goal module is premium based right now. Okay, so there you go. You got your users, you got your goals set up. You could come in here, set up a couple of your carriers. Put the carrier name in. We need to update the labels here, but current carrier are the ones, that's who they are with when they come to you to get a quote. So a lot of those will be your competitors, and then proposed carriers are who you end up proposing. So those will be your own carriers, or they could in some cases be both. So you can mark that. You can say whether it's a 6-month or 12-month term, active or inactive. If you mark inactive, it takes it out of the list. Okay, so set up your carriers. And then we'll come to this later, but you can also set up your sources. What this means is, where is your business coming from? This is going to help you figure out your return on investment for different, depending on where your business is coming from. There's a really powerful referral module in this which it will help you know exactly who is sending your business, how much they sent you, what the closing ratio is, how you're doing with all of that. And you can even customize the whole referral program so that in an automated way, different things happen to help encourage and nurture additional referrals. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that too. But anyway, so there you go. You've got your settings set up. So first thing we're going to talk about that will have a major impact on how much you produce each month is what we call is capturing all leads. And what we call kind of in the Amped world here, we call it the 10-second rule, which means we highly suggest that every agent and all the agents in an agency get in the habit of capturing leads, meaning putting it into the system within 10 seconds of discovering that lead. And when I say lead, it's a warm lead or a prospect. So this isn't the 1,000 names out of the phone book. These are potential deals that you want to spend your time and energy on because you think they're either a warm lead or a prospect that's actually expressed some interest. So what that means is that's not just agents that will put this in. You need to have every single user in your agency have this open all day long so that the second they see a potential deal that needs to be given some attention to, they can quickly and immediately put that deal in. So let me show you how to do that real quick. So all you need to do is type the name here, and as you're typing, it will search the database. And if it sees anything in the database, it's going to show up in a list below, and you can just select that. And if it's not in the list, you can hit add contact. Let's say on this one, let's say it's not in the list, right? I could add contact. I could finish this up if I wanted to, but if I'm in a hurry, I just hit save. Maybe I put a few notes here if I want. Oh, the only two required fields are the name and the source. And that we're going to get into this, but we'll talk a little more about the source later, but very powerful to know where your business is coming from so that you can nurture what works and kill or fix what doesn't, right? So we're going to say the source on this one is, I don't know, online media of some kind. We'll say, and you could actually name specific campaigns and you get it's all customizable, but for purpose of this, we'll just go with that. And maybe I take a note here. Now, if this is me, my name's Ben, I could just leave this as me. If I'm assigning it to somebody else, I can click somebody else, and actually get credit for doing a handoff or a referral. So here we go. I'm going to add this, and you can see there it is. It's in my active list. So again, 10-second rule, you want everybody in your agency to be able to quickly add deals. If you don't do this, if not everybody's in total commitment to add deals, then as any agency managers out there or agency owners, you'll never really know exactly what's going on in your agency unless you have 100% lead capture. You don't know how often somebody maybe will call up, it gets scratched down on a piece of paper and gets lost or mishandled, right? You don't exactly know which of your lead sources are doing better than others because you don't know about all the leads. I kind of compare it to, say, owning a factory and never going inside that factory. You just have to rely on whoever it is working in that factory at the end of the day when they come out to tell you how things went. You don't want that. You want total transparency, and you want to know about every single solitary lead. And it's not just for managers or for the owners. The actual producer themselves should want to capture everything right away, because if they can have a system they trust, that the second they think of somebody, they throw it in. The second they're on the phone and somebody's saying, hey, I want something, they throw it in. They don't have to rely on their memories or papers or shuffle things. It saves a huge amount of time because everything they should be working on is right there. It's and ready to go, and they don't forget it. So that's capture all leads, the 10-second rule. Try to make it work. A couple really quick little hacks or little things I'll share. Some of the agencies that do this have found that it's very helpful to do what we call a green wall. So what that means is anytime you're trying to get your people to do a new behavior, so let's say capture all leads, one idea is you can pin up a bunch of dollar bills on the wall and just say, hey, anytime anybody for this next week, put your deals in within 10 seconds of getting them, do it immediately. And every time you do, you can walk over here and grab $1. And that might pay for their dinner or lunch that day. And it's well worth it because within a week or two, you've got your entire team totally committed to throwing everything in there. Another thing that's kind of cool is whoever gets the lead should put it in. So, for example, a receptionist gets a lead, passes it off to a producer. They can just quickly, while they're passing that lead off, add the deal real quick. And what the sidebar will start to show key metrics of what matters to people that day. So it's trying to make it fun, and you can see what's going on. So of course you have your production to goal. I think I mentioned up here at the top left here in this bar. So for me, none of this data is real, but in the sandbox here, in this example, my monthly goal is $50,000, and I've got $25,000 so far this month, and is not in red because at the time of this recording, I'm only a week into it, so I'm not behind schedule. It'll figure out, am I ahead or behind schedule? If I'm behind, it'll be red. So there we go. But receptionist grabs a lead and is handing it off to somebody. It'll show up right here. And so you're actually giving everyone in the office an incentive to create and enter deals for other people in the agency. So now all of a sudden, cross-selling, it starts to become a thing that everybody's kind of watching and helping. So maybe you have a P&C agent that you want them to hand off a whole bunch of health and life leads. Well, they can do that. Just hit add deal. Okay, this guy wants a life policy. I'm going to assign it to another producer. Here you just click the life producer, hit save, goes into that guy's pipeline. Maybe you put a few notes in there. Bam, that guy gets credit, at least an attaboy, and you can assign your own compensation to this, but at least an attaboy or attagirl for handing that off. So anyway, same with reception. They don't even have to be a salesperson. Everybody can get involved in capturing leads and getting credit for it. So there we go. 10% second rule, capture all leads. Think about it for a second. How many deals in your agency are forgotten every month? Not because anybody wants to. It just happens, right? Is there a way? And then if you do have a way, if you're capturing them, can you capture it in 10 seconds? If not, the people are going to procrastinate and you're going to lose deals. So if your people in your agency were to capture 100% of the deals right away, what would that do to your bottom line? How many more deals would you close each month, right? So that's one thing to think about. Now, next thing, we're going to say focus on what's active. So a lot of producers and a lot of agencies, they have a system they're using right now, and it's often not the CRM that they're using to manage policies. And the reason is because most CRMs are just fancy electronic file cabinets. They are absolutely horrible, most of them, at dealing with things on the sales side. So, for example, the CRM we use, it probably takes about 2 minutes to add any kind of a deal in. So it's not the 10-second thing. So it just doesn't happen. People wait until they actually bind something or close a deal before they add it into their CRM. So what do? Because their CRM or the system that they're using, that their agency provides to manage sales is so poor, they start to come up with their own systems, right? So for example, it might be like I've mentioned earlier, Post-it notes, or it could be a spreadsheet, or it could be some gimpy little, maybe some online tool they're trying to use, like a to-do list or something like that, right? And so, the problem with a lot of those systems, though, is you spend massive amounts of time and energy trying to keep everything organized and keep on top of things. So, and the worst is when agents just use papers on a desk and memory. So they come in the morning, they sit down, and they really don't know immediately who to work on, what's the highest priority, where they're at on each thing. They have to spend massive amounts of energy and time trying to remember where they're at. And what usually happens, unfortunately, is they bounce around from whatever seems most urgent. Bounce the whole day. And then a day later or 2 days later, they've forgotten to follow up on the good leads. They forgot, and so, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, they've got a book of business with a bunch of clients that they wish they didn't have. And all the clients they wish they did have, they know they didn't spend the time to proactively go after it. Why? Because their sales management system was poor. So here's what happens with Amped. You're capturing all the leads. Producer comes in the morning or whenever, during his time or her time, sits down, bam, looks at this active list. There we go. I know exactly who I need to work on today. And what's going to happen is they can prioritize by premium. They can prioritize by what they've indicated as hot versus not. In most agencies, hot means, hey, this will close, just get it done. And not means, okay, it might close, So that's how a lot do it. You can sort it by different data that way to help prioritize it. And then you just start knocking it out. You click on one, it opens up, you do your next actions and advance it down this last stage completed, right? And you can take notes. You can use, here shortly, we'll have the ability to make attachments so you can attach quotes or do whatever you're doing. Now, what I recommend a producer do is while they're in this system knocking out their next actions, this will sound strange, but we want to really reduce double data entry. You don't want to be doing everything on both systems. So in most agencies that are using AMP, what happens is the service people end up using their service-based CRM for service, and then they use AMP as the sales system. So what ends up happening is the salespeople pretty much live in this system where the salespeople, that is, and then the service people live in the CRM. And what this does is it brings an incredible amount of focus to each type of person. So the salespeople, they're not getting distracted with emails. They're not getting distracted with all these service issues that are popping up. And they're better able to block out time and say, okay, I'm going to knock out my sales right now. And they might spend a few hours every morning just doing next actions on every single one of their deals in prioritized order, right? So they open it up, they do the next action. They say, okay, what's the next thing I need to do? They might add that here, say, oh, I need to go visit them tomorrow or whatever. And they schedule that. And then they advance this if they want. If they want to snooze it for a week, they could actually come in here and say, okay, I don't want to see this for another week. I don't want it to distract me. I don't want it to suck up my time. I don't want to have to think about it again until a week from now. So they could go in here and click it and put a different date in so that it'll just pop up. And in that way, what happens is every single day they take their next actions and they're only on a day-to-day basis seeing what they should work on that day, and they're not being distracted by anything else. So that is focus on what's active. We've also covered prioritizing all active deals and then snooze. Okay, and I did touch on snoozing to keep focused on active. Okay, so okay, so there we go. So what that means is, if you think about that, imagine all of your producers in your agency, or if you're a producer yourself, imagine never having to shuffle around again, knowing exactly what you need to work on when. How much better would your production be? Now, here's the other thing. Let's say rather than killing something or forgetting it, what if, you use this snooze feature and every single deal that you don't close, you actually automatically snooze for 6 months out. You don't have to run reports in the CRM. You don't have to go chase this data down. It just pops up. You sit down to do your deals, pops up, bam, you make the call, right? You see your past notes, you make the call. How many more deals would you be closing if you had that feature? Some of this stuff's not, you won't see a return on that one tomorrow, but you give it a year using this consistently, all of a sudden you're going to start seeing those production numbers climb in a drastic way, right? So yeah, that's a huge thing to be able to snooze, to revisit deals in the future in such an easy way. Other systems have it, but it makes it hard, right? And it doesn't just pop back up in a lot of them. So there you go. Snooze to revisit deals in the future. What's that going to mean to you? Another thing is, if you keep things active like this, what'll happen is you see on here, last contact or last time you do something. Some producers a couple things will happen. They end up with the same deals in their pipeline and they churn, right? They're just sitting there day in and day out working on them. And so there's a couple things that we do to avoid that. One is you get some great reports that will start to point that out. In fact, let me just dive into that right away. So, one of those reports is this historical pipeline, what's happened, and you'll put a date in here. And if nothing's moved for somebody, if they haven't advanced anybody through the pipeline, this will all be zeros. They haven't advanced. Everything's just stuck sitting there. So it gets really clear really fast if somebody's just monkeying around with the same deals, right? And there's some other reports too that get proactively sent out, automatically sent out by the system to the owners and the salespeople. The sales managers. They don't have to dig for it, and those will make it really clear as well. So that's the other thing here, is this kind of a system really keeps your agents focused on what's active. It doesn't lose deals, and you're going to avoid churning stuff. And then another thing I might mention is it keeps you focused with the action. With this action section here, you can keep them focused in on next actions. In fact, it's another little hack. Let me hit one of the more powerful things. It's subtle. It's easy to underestimate just how powerful this is. But if your producers will learn to have a habit in the morning of just taking action, whatever that next action is, take it. Production will go up. What happens with a lot of producers is they end up they'll do what feels comfortable. They'll do what they have a habit of doing, and they'll avoid anything that feels uncomfortable. That's human nature, right? Our brains are born to want to keep us comfortable. So if they can get in the habit of scheduling, what's interesting is if I say, okay, will I eat carrots tomorrow? Well, yeah, sure, I'll eat them tomorrow. That's not a hard thing, right? Or will I work out for half hour? For whatever reason, my brain doesn't come up with reasons to procrastinate if I'm already procrastinating, right? Like if I say, okay, I'm going to do it tomorrow. So that's why your agents want to plan their next action, like do all they can right now, then plan the next action. And then what they have to do is get in the habit of when it pops up, that's not the time to be planning. You already planned. Your brain's going to try to come up with reasons to procrastinate. You have to ignore them. If it's on the list and there's an action plan, just do it, just do it, just do it. And if they'll do that, they'll close a lot more that way. This is particularly true for agencies that aren't just quoting and closing on the phone, but they're actually having to kind of get out there and chase deals a little bit, right? So anyway, so that's this system helps with that next action focus. Another thing you can do is proper follow-up. That's another super valuable thing here. So not only can they go through and do each next thing, and they can assign tasks for the future for themselves and others. But another thing that some agents will do is they'll do batch processing. So for example, in this case, I can filter all of my active deals by stage. And so I can say, you know what, there's 2 of them that I've presented that I haven't bound. Oh, let me just go through these real quick. We have new, that means it's brand new deal that hasn't been contacted yet. So if you add a deal, by default, it's brand new. Once you contact it, people can mark that they've been contacted. They've had that first qualifying conversation, right? The next step ends up being gathering information. So, and sometimes that happens together. You call them up, you talk to them, and you gather all the information. That's fine. You do 2 steps in all together. But this is once you get all the information gathered, then a proposal needs to be prepared. So this says, okay, proposal's ready. This is a stage here because if you have somebody helping you, you want them to be able to advance that to the next one that will indicate to the producer, oh, okay, it's ready to go. I just need to present it, right? Then they'll jump in and present it. So what's cool is you can start to do batch processing. Whoever's quoting for you might come in here and look at all the ones you've gathered information on and work on quoting. For the folks that maybe a producer that says, you know what, I've done a lot of quotes the last 2 weeks that haven't been bound, and I want to do some follow-ups on that before I snooze them for a future date. So they can actually click on this and just do that in batches, do these different types of activities in batches. Okay, so there we go. And then so proper follow-up, that, this is obviously going to help with that. We talked about embracing discomfort. That's kind of let's see. So one of the things, I want to talk about the action thing a little bit more. So we've briefly touched on it. There's auto actions that can be created. This is hugely powerful. So for example, if you come in here into account with this particular sandbox, we have some auto actions created for referral nurturing. So in the agencies that use Amped, for most of them, now there's variances if you're doing most of your business online or you're doing kind of a bucket shop but for the most part, your best leads are going to come from referrals. If you do a really, really good job, those are the best source, in my opinion, that you can usually get are referrals from your ideal existing clients, because they'll tend to refer people that are similar, right? And they're already pre-sold. If my buddy tells me to go to you and I actually take the trouble to come find you, there's a really good chance I'm going to close with you. So we want to refer. One of the biggest things this can do for lead generation, not just lead conversion, but lead generation, is help you nurture additional referrals. This is huge. So if you come in here in this sandbox here, we have, you can come in here and you can add a little auto action. And what you do is there's different ones you can do, but in this particular one, it's an auto action that's tied to the pipeline. So what you could do is say, okay, anytime I get a new deal entered that has a referral or has a lead source as referral. So anytime somebody adds a deal and they click that it's a referral, I want to send a thank you card or whatever it is, you name it, right? Send a gift or send. So like some agencies, like what we do in our agent in a couple of the agencies that I have an interest in, what we do is we send it immediately. We send a text out. So here's a little hack. Here's some, for what it's worth, this might help you. We send a text out the same day that we get a referral to whoever sent the referral to us. So let's say it's a loan officer, right? That loan officer is going to get a thank you text not necessarily immediately, but same day when we get that referral. And the reason that's going to happen is because, in fact, let me just get out of here. I'll show you. Text thank you referral. What happens is anytime somebody's news entered that's a referral, a task with this name is going to show up for this person to process. 0 days. You could set it for different days, but in this example, it's 0 days later. So then what happens is you come here to actions, and if we go to Cassandra here, the person that gets assigned these, we got her in a couple times, then it shows up here. So every day she's going to go through here and email these referrals. So, and look how easy it is. She'll just mark it off. She sends a text out, marks it off. It shows that it's done, right? So you can do all kinds of things. Another thing in this sandbox example here with that is, let's say the owner wants to do thank you calls for everybody. That's kind of how we have this set up. This whole program is super, super snappy, with the exception if you get into a couple of these settings, it takes a little bit to load. Anyway, here we go. So like welcome call, right? So let's say anytime something is bound, and I don't care what the source is, we want to do a welcome call to the agency, and we're going to have one of the owners, in this case, make a call. And when do we want to do it? Well, 7 days after 7 days after it was bound, 7 days after it meets this criteria. Okay, so there you go. So this is extremely powerful because you can think of different instances or different triggers within a workflow that you want to have happen that will create more deals or increase conversion. So for example, you could send out let's say that you say, oh, I want to send a welcome kit out to new clients, and in that we're going to explain our referral program. Well, that would be huge. So you could create an auto action for that. Or you could say, you know what, for everyone that doesn't close, then what we want to have happen is a survey gets sent to them. So let's send the survey out to find out, was it too much price? Did we get back to them too slow? What advice do we have? Whatever. And that might save some of those, So just, you can think of these different auto actions that you want to have happen. Now, right now, it's not going to send the email for you. We're working on integration for things like that so it can actually automatically do what it is, but it will create a task for somebody to do and execute on. And that works really, really well, really, really powerful. So imagine that. Go through your agency. Think about, gosh, if we could send out a welcome package. We could send out, we call them shock and awe packages. So something designed to really impress a prospect, a certain prospect. Or I think the biggest thing everybody should do is the referral nurturing. Definitely have that. Oh, one thing you'll notice in here is you can even do things like, okay, after 5 referrals, let's send them this gift. After 10 referrals, and we just name that. And then what we did is number of so you have the action name, the number of referrals here. This is specifically for the referral program. These are auto actions for the referral program. But you can come in here and set this up, right? So that is absolutely powerful. So, if you haven't really been on top of the referral program before, let me give you a couple pointers beyond just this software. One is that if you're in kind of a bucket shop or something where you have to ask, are we working with a demographic that will hand over their mother's name or whatever for a free pizza or for a gift? There are certain demographics that will do that. They can be bribed to give you names. For the most part, when a big chunk of people though, they might give you some names if they feel pressured, and then they'll call them up and warn them, hey, just so you know, I gave this insurance guy your name, so sorry about that. And you can end up going on a wild goose chase. So kind of what I recommend doing is rather than really going hard on referrals, coming up with some kind of a referral program. And I find 2 things work for your existing clientele. Most of them just want to help you. If you have a good relationship with them and you're doing good and you let them know, hey, I really appreciate referrals, in some ways, not trying to bribe it from them right up front is more effective, because think of it this way. If you've got a family member, right, and they say to you, maybe you want to help your family member out, but as soon as they say, hey, thanks for doing that, here's $5, it almost cheapens it, right? So you want to be kind of cognizant of that when you do these referral programs, you don't want to hurt the goodwill and just the natural inclination of people to want to help you because they like you. Now, that's totally, if they send a referral to you and then you send them something that says, hey, I know this isn't much, just wanted to show you a token of my appreciation. Now that's something different. You send a $20 gift card to Amazon or something. That's different because you didn't bribe it from them. You're just showing, and you're explaining it to them, and you're saying thank you. You're acknowledging that referral, which is huge, right? That makes people feel good. Hey, this guy appreciates the referral he gave me. He's acknowledging it, and he showed me a little token of appreciation with this gift. That's huge. So you'll see some huge gains in referrals if you kind of think through the psychology of it and make sure you don't offend anybody by just trying to buy their mom for a slice of pizza, right? So anyway, there's a few pointers there on referrals, but Amped and the referral module that's integrated into it can literally double an agency's production with time. It's not going to happen overnight with the referral program, if you do it right, but over time, you will get more and more and more referrals. So if you're just think about who has influence with the clientele that you want, go out and get and engage with them, and then start nurturing those referrals from them. Okay, so let's see. Auto actions. Let's see. Set personal goals and track progress. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. We see that the goals here, we can go in here to this historical pipeline. So here's what's happened. Every producer is listed here. You can see on the historical, let's say that you close a deal and it moves through all the stages all the way to bound. It'll show up in every single one of these if it moved through those stages during this time period. So this just shows how many deals went through that stage at a given time. So you're looking backwards, if that makes sense. Now you can click on any of these and see the details if you want to get a little more information, right? So, and then sometimes owners or people that aren't normally in production will close some deals. It used to be in an older version of this, those names would just show up with all the other producers, but we found psychologically it was a little weird for owners or managers that don't produce a lot to be seen with the group with such low production numbers compared to everybody else. So what we did is we have a little non-producer section here. And so anybody that's not normally a producer can be thrown in under here. You can still see it, but it's a reminder to everyone on the team that, hey, these folks, their job is not production. This is all extra credit, the fact that they did this. So that's kind of cool. You can switch here. I should mention this. It actually can sort the data one of two ways. I prefer by owner. What that means is it shows the data associated. So this Chris Horrocks, for example, all of the deals that he's an assigned producer on that advanced through here are going to show up under his record there. If you click to user, and so that's probably the way that most everybody is going to use it is you give credit to the assigned producer for advancement. But you could also, it's kind of interesting to click on this user, because let's say you have, let's say a producer has an assistant that might go in and quote things or prepare a proposal or different things. And they go in there and they actually will, what they do is they go in and click on the, they'll click on something, and then the producer says, okay, it's information's gathered, or it's ready, boss. You can go present it now. When they click on that, if you're in, if you're in a historical pipeline here, then if you've got this the toggle over to user, you can see who actually clicked on it to advance it. So it's just a way to be able to kind of see, either see it by assigned producer or see it by who is actually going in there as a user and advancing things through the stages. Kind of interesting. Of course, you got your filters and stuff up here. So a couple things I might just mention on this. Just reviewing this historical pipeline, say in a weekly meeting or a sales meeting or something like that, will increase production. People you'll be able to see patterns. So for example, maybe somebody's getting all their leads up to a certain stage, but not beyond. You can start to ask questions of why that is, right? You can start to see that, gosh, you know, when you click on some of these, you can start to say, oh, well, this person's getting all of them from this source or from that source. And you can, or they're writing them with a certain carrier or not. So you start to see patterns there. Very, very powerful. And then this live pipeline, this just shows where everything is right now today. So if you're in a sales meeting, you know, you could come in here and look at this. You could, so for example, presented, you know, you could click on the total here. This is a sandbox, so we've got way too many in here, 230. But normally you'd have, you know, a lot smaller list. But this is everybody that's been presented that hasn't been bound. And so this would be people, you know, deals that your people should be following up on, for example, you know, and you could look at where are things getting stuck in a certain stage and not progressing, where are we at, you know, and identify. So this is extremely powerful for sales managers and owners because it helps them identify patterns so they can give good coaching to their people. Real quick, another thing over here. So we had the monthly production. This here are the daily numbers for each logged in person. So in this case, Ben Page would see that he's added 2 new deals today. He's done 2 presentations. That's the you know, the final step of it's kind of the first part of the pipeline and the last presented. And then how many has he bound today? So this doesn't show premium, it just shows number of policies. And then how many has been handed off, you know, to other people. And then this shows how many deals. If you come here to deals, you've got yellow, red, or green. This just means, okay, we've got, if we look at all of them here, we've got 10 of these deals that have no next action scheduled. 2 of them do have a next action and they're overdue. And then if I had any due today, they would be green. And so that kind of helps producers know too if they're ignoring things or not thinking ahead on stuff. So that's kind of that. So we've gone through the sidebar. We know about adding deals. You can quote, you can look for people here. You can use the search bar. And if you search it, what's kind of cool is you can look at that contact and see all the deals associated with that contact. You can add another deal here. You know, if you're in one of these, you can actually click on the name, same thing, see all the deals associated with that person. So there's a lot of little shortcuts in here that we don't have time to go through today. But that's a quick overview. Now, one final thing, sales managers and owners are going to love this. At the end of each day, you don't even have, kind of a belief we have is people shouldn't have to chase for information. If you're in a system, you've got to sit there for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or even 30 seconds waiting for a report to be created. That's no good. You don't want to chase information down. So the system will actually push information out to you, actionable, smart information. And so, for example, at the end of every day, every single user, including the sales managers and the owners, get a PDF for the day that shows what that day's production was throughout the entire agency. So say the agency owner or the sales manager is on vacation for a week. Doesn't matter. He's going to know at the end of every day without making a call, without bugging anybody, he's going to have real solid actual data of what really happened that day. What got bound, what didn't get bound, what got quoted, he'll know or she'll know. So that's extremely powerful. Another thing, in fact, let me see, let me pause this. I'm going to show. Okay, here we go. I want to show you some reports. So every day I'll get a daily production report for each user and it'll show, for all of your users. So here's some examples. It'll show each producer, how many new, how many was quoted or presented, how many was bound, what the premium is for that, and then what that is compared to their monthly goal, and then what percent to goal they are. So extremely, extremely powerful. Okay, and then the other powerful report, I recommend kind of the best practices within Amped is to have at least one sales meeting each week. And what you want to do in this sales meeting is review the tapes, is what we call it. Kind of like if you're a sports team and you watch the tapes. What you want to do is listen to phone calls. You want to review what happened that week. Just kind of look at everything that happened and then plan kind of the next week out. So anyway, one of the things that can help with this is this weekly report that gets automatically sent out to you in a PDF in your email, so easy to get to. But you can look at this and you can see exactly, there's different sections for that report. One is, okay, where's this guy at or this gal at? Production for the month. compared to his monthly goal. What did he close this week? In this particular example here, where this is sandbox, I don't have any production in this week when this was kicked out, but anyway, if he'd closed 10 deals, they'd all be listed there, and you can kind of go over and say, hey, that's great. Good job. You did it, and then what's active in his pipeline? What is he working on right now? You can kind of walk through that. It's kind of cool too, because it lists the last activity. So if something's just sitting there, you kind of know, right? So you can talk to him about that. Hey, you haven't looked at this for even a week. What's the deal? You either need to move this or not. So, anyway, so you got that. And then we need to change the word from lost to snooze. But, in this is the snooze stuff. So, hey, anything you snoozed, if you snooze it out 6 months, they're forced by the system to put a reason in. So you might see patterns there, like why are they, and you might say, oh gosh, that guy I know, let me call him up. Maybe we can resurrect that one and make it happen, So, or deals you're referred to others, you can give them a pat on the back. Wow, you gave him 7, you got 7 leads over to the health guy or whatever. And so that's cool. And then the other really cool thing is no 1 month's production really gives you an accurate view of how this producer is doing in general. So this will show you the 6-month rolling production of, did they hit their goal the last 6 months? So if you've got, none of these are working here, but I mean, with this particular, where this sandbox doesn't have any production to pull into it, but, normally what you'd see is if they had hit their goals, they're green. And if they didn't, they're red. And so you can say, oh, okay, of the last 6 months, you had 1 red, but 5 green. Then, maybe don't beat that person up too much for being short on their goal this month, right? But if, maybe they're green this month and they've had the last 5 red, you might still want to have a conversation with them. So it kind of gives context to how they're doing this month. So very powerful, gives you a huge amount of coaching opportunity. This is just kind of a really quick overview, I guess. Anyway, think about all the different ways that this can simplify things, make things easier. I mean, we've covered a lot of things, right? There's a whole bunch, like when I actually read off all that the system does for you, it's huge, right? So for example, the referral program, the production goal management, deal prioritization, and next action focus, cross-selling or cross-promotion module with the handoffs and that. Source management, knowing what's a good ROI, what isn't, where's your deals coming from. The automated task, the ability to collaborate with your team, the goal management for carriers, to be able to sit down and make sure that you're on track for contingencies. I don't even know if I mentioned that, but you can track where you're at with your contingencies. Increasing the quality of leads and the quality of bindings and the results just by being able to really control the whole sales process a lot better. Pipeline transparency, being able to add deals in 10 seconds. All of these things, it sounds like a lot, but really the actual work, the system does the work. All you really need to do is add a couple things that might take a few seconds here to just add a deal. And then as they're going through, working on them, they just take a few notes, maybe do a task, and then advance it through the pipeline here. All of the benefits come with so little amount of inputs. It's great that way. Anyway, sign up for the 14-day free trial. You're going to be amazed at how affordable this program is, considering that it could create thousands and thousands of dollars worth of additional revenue, and simplify everybody's life, make it a lot easier. You'd expect to spend quite a bit for this, I think, but you're going to be shocked at just how affordable it is. We're totally dedicated to making sure that that every single solitary agent out there that wants to grow can afford this. So, anyway, sign up and let's increase production, leverage it to increase your production.